You know that feeling when you're scrolling through Instagram and you see someone who completely captivates you, you stop the scroll and you want to pay attention to what they're actually doing? Well, this is the power of a personal brand. And today I'm digging deep in the Creatives Rule the World podcast with my friend Taylor Smith. So let's dive in. Hey there, I'm Tracy Matthews. I am the Chief Visionary Officer of Creatives Rule the World, and I support business owners in launching into their next chapter by realigning their business and reimagining what success looks like so that they are building brands that are completely aligned with the big vision of where they're going. Today, we're going to tap into why building a personal brand is the key to success in business. And I'm so excited to talk with my friend Taylor Smith about this. She's been through multiple pivots. She's had product-based businesses and coaching brands, digital companies, so many things, and has been able to really structure those businesses around her personal brand. And this is how she's become so successful to build a community of over 19,000 people who are following her. So I think you're really going to enjoy this episode. We use some relatable examples. Now, if you're watching this on YouTube, I would love for you to make sure that you are subscribed to my channel and click that little notification bell if you haven't done so yet to get more episodes just like this. All right, let's dive into this episode today with Taylor Smith. Welcome back to Creatives Rule the World. I'm so excited to be here with my friend Taylor Smith. Taylor, welcome.
Hi, Tracy. Thank you so much for having me on the podcast.
I am so excited to speak to you today because we met kind of remotely through a business group, and you came in several months ago to talk about AI and using it in your business. Now we have a tool called Desire AI, and I'm going to be sharing a little bit more about that in your summit that you're having about standing out online. And so I just wanted to have you on the show today to talk a little bit more about branding. So I'm so excited to chat with you today, Taylor, because you have businesses in all types of genres. You sell physical products. You also help coaches. You're doing all the things. And with that, personal branding is so important. So why don't you give us a little backstory about how you came here, how you got here?
Yes, of course. So learning to build my own personal brand definitely came through a lot of pivots in my own journey as an entrepreneur. So I am the host of a community I created called the Power Table. We have a podcast, we have a live in-person conference, we have virtual events as well. It's over 19,000 women globally, which is so cool. And before that, I founded several businesses, and I'm going to back up a little bit further.
Yes.
I have a BA and MA in anthropology. So I have a background. My only goal in life was to be a teacher. And so straight out of grad school, I became a college professor at 23 years old. And I was like, this is it. Like, I achieved my only life goal. And it did not take me very long before I realized I was incredibly underpaid and undervalued, and working in public education was like, it killed my soul. And so I love teaching, but I knew I reached this point where I was like, this cannot be every day of the rest of my life. So I go into corporate education. I'm like, oh, this will be better. I'll be higher paid, which I mean, I was marginally. And in that time, I started like side hustling and playing around with some businesses. And it turned out I was really good at marketing, brand strategy, and understanding people and what people want. And then that anthropology, human behavioral background really came into play there. And then COVID happened. I thought I was going to lose my teaching job. And all these things happened really quickly at once. Like everything kind of coalesced and aligned, and my businesses took off. And then I was like, oh, I'm not worried about losing my job. I'm now struggling with the decision that I have to quit my job because my businesses are making 3 times my salary. And so
wow, that's pretty cool.
It was cool. And I was terrified I would be a one-hit wonder and my businesses would fail. And then I was like, oh, I quit my job for nothing. That didn't happen, but it was definitely a fear that I had for several months. Diving into that, from there, I built businesses in physical products. So one of the companies I started was an Etsy shop with my sister. We scaled it to the top 1% of 8 million Etsy shops worldwide. And then I've built over 250 digital products. I own a company that's done over 400 virtual and in-person events. And I worked with a lot of clients, over 3,000 women in the past 6 years, with building and scaling profitable businesses. So there's a lot there. And for me, personal branding comes from the fact that I was terrified of letting people know that. I thought if they knew that I had experience in physical products, that I had experience in coaching, that I had so much marketing knowledge and launch strategy knowledge, I thought if they knew that, it would water me down and people would say things like, she's so flaky, or sorry, you're doing
Mm.
what now? And so that kind of really held me back for a long time. I would think when people were like, what businesses do you own? In my mind, I would think, please ask me any question except that one.
So that's really interesting. It's so funny because I come at it at a different perspective. I feel like when you have multiple businesses and you have all this different varied experience, it's actually a benefit because you can speak to so many different types of businesses.
Yes. So that's where things started to change for me. And I started to realize like, this is not a weakness, it's a strength.
Hmm.
And it took me about 5 years of being a business owner before I kind of stopped and I was like, wait a second, why are you hiding from this part of your story when every single time that you expanded and grew your business and offered something new and you went through a pivot, and I'm sure, Tracy, I know you've been going through a lot of pivots,
Yeah,
big pivots lately, so you can understand this too, but every time I pivoted, it just added dollars to my bank account.
exactly. Okay, so I have a belief that reinvention and pivoting is basically the best way and the best kept secret to staying relevant as a business
Mm.
owner and also increasing your profitability. So, how has that played into your life and your business?
I completely agree with that. Someone, I would say it was maybe Katrina Scott that I heard say a few years ago. I was listening to her on a podcast, and she was saying that she didn't know a single successful person that didn't go through a major reinvention every 2 to 3 years. And
Yes.
that personally and in your business is something that when I thought about it and I kind of reflected back, I was like, oh, yes, like that's actually true. And every
Yeah.
time I did, I got these incredible opportunities I never would have guessed. And my business sales, my revenue just kept growing, but it required me to go through that hard work every few years.
Let me back up a little bit. I want to talk about building a personal brand,
Mm-hmm.
but first, like, how did you start stepping into building a personal brand that to separate you from your
Mm.
businesses? Because I feel like that's something that people really struggle with. One of the things I hear a lot of times, my 14 years owning this company, Flourish and Thrive Academy, and supporting jewelry business owners, a lot of these makers, they just want to hide behind that bench. They don't want to show their face. They want the brand to be the business. But we know that people connect with people. And being a human behind the brand is actually the thing that is going to make more sales. So, like, what is your take on that? And how did you start detract or pulling yourself away from or behind the scenes into front facing to build a personal brand?
It's, don't get me wrong, if you struggle with this, I just want to acknowledge that. Like it's something we want, right? We want to, if especially if you're a physical product seller, you're just like, but this is my value.
Yeah.
What you're doing is, I don't think people are actually, it's not that they don't want to do the work or show up as themselves and show their face. I think people feel, especially coaches as well, but they feel as entrepreneurs that their value is in the thing they created.
Mm-hmm.
And so a lot of times with our physical product sellers, they're like, but I'm not funny. I'm not good on camera. I don't have any really good stories, and I'm not a business coach, so I don't have anything to share. But what I have of value is the thing I created.
Mm-hmm.
And that is valuable, but it's not you. And your value didn't only start to exist when you made that product, when you became a jewelry maker
Right.
or a physical product creator. And something that I have noticed a lot is a lot of entrepreneurs are oldest daughters. Now, not all of us, but a
I'm the
lot of
second.
people. Are you?
I am not the oldest. Yeah.
Okay, you're not the oldest, but maybe you were like one of the like responsible kids in the
Yes, I was
family.
definitely had so much responsibility
Okay.
for sure. Yeah.
Okay. So it's like that role, whether you're the actual oldest or not, but our whole lives were socialized into the more you provide for other people, the more value you give to other people, the more worthy you are. And we're translating
Mm.
that into why we don't think we need a personal brand or why we aren't showing up in our business that way, because we think that the most value we're going to give to people is in the output. But that's not what the
Interesting.
consumer wants, right? They actually just want to connect with you because they can buy 1,000 different products and 1,000 different pieces of jewelry on Amazon for a fraction of what you sell. But
Yeah,
that's
and if it
not
was
actually
just
what
about
they're
the
looking
jewelry,
for.
people would just buying it based on price, but we know that that's not
Right.
why they buy it.
Exactly. We know like that's not what people want. And so there's the part of like stepping back and realizing your own value. And then there's the part of like, if we look at the consumer data, there's actually scientific proof and qualitative data to show this is actually the best decision you could make for your business would be to get out in front of the camera.
Well, let's talk about that. So tell me a little bit more about how you build a personal brand. What are the things that we need to be thinking about?
Okay, so first you need a brand story. And I know you have talked about this.
Oh, yes, we talk about this like left and right. You need a brand story, you need a
Exactly.
reinvention story, you need all the stories.
Day one, what is your story? And like, I share that to say, like, this is the foundation. So start here. Like, what's the story you want to tell? And then to build a personal brand, we're not just going to tell that story one time. You need to tell that story again and again and again. And a big mindset shift here is that people think if I keep telling the same story or talking about the same topic, I'm repetitive and annoying or loud. And the reality is like only 2% of people see your content. Anyway, on most social media platforms, I promise you, you're not annoying anyone. But also that repetition is actually recognition. So when people hear that story again and again, you start to become unforgettable and more recognizable in a world where in the United States, the average American reads or sees 100,000 words a day. And so like if you know your people are being inundated by content and information all day long, it's actually helping them if you are more repetitive and you tell your story more often.
I love this angle on that because I feel like you're right. Most people don't even see your social media content or where you're putting it out. And I've shared the same story about my history over and over again. And people in my community are always saying like every time you share your story, every time you tell me that one story or this story or whatever it is, because your story is so much bigger than just like your about page or
Mm-hmm.
a 90-second clip or even a 10-minute video, right? There's so many variations on the story and how it wove you and got you to where you are today. So there's so many different ways that you can talk about it that it doesn't necessarily sound repetitive to weave it back in.
Yes, and you can pull out those little bits and make them relevant to different things. So, such as holidays or things that are happening. There's ways to just extract parts where it's not always the same, but you're still hitting on those same notes of what matters to you. So, like, what is the mission? What's the why behind it? So, and just to give a physical product example here, I bought my sister one of those bracelets that like tracks animals. So it's like whale sharks that it tracks and it has a QR code she can scan. And at any point she wants to check on her whale shark and see where it is in the world, there's like a GPS tracker to a whale shark somewhere like in New Zealand.
Wait, that's cool. Wait,
It's
I don't
super
even
cool. They
understand what
have
you're talking about. She has a tracker on a whale, like an actual whale.
like on an actual whale shark. Yes. I think
That's
the brand is called Follow, Fahlo.
that's cool.
Super cool. And they do sea turtles. They partner with conservation and like nonprofits that are tagging the animals for scientific and like environmental purposes. And then your bracelet purchase like a portion of the sale goes to support those organizations. And then you get to track your animal. And then you have wolves, sea turtles, all these things.
That is the coolest thing I've ever heard of. I want a sea
Super
turtle.
cool. And so it
I want my own
became
sea
like
turtle.
this story. And the founders, like if you go on their social media, like you can also see them showing up and they're telling these stories of why this got started. But it's all like, it's so interesting, like to think that like the part of the story is like, hey, so where's your whale shark today? And finding ways to do that in your personal brand and like find the stories that you think are important to you and important to other people in that they can see themselves in you, right? So I was afraid to tell people I was a pivot queen. Okay, so that's going to be relevant to other people who have also had to reinvent themselves.
I feel like everyone's reinventing themselves right now too. We just ended my program, The Art of Reinvention, yesterday as we're recording this. And it's been so exciting to see like the evolution of these people. Some of them stepping away from corporate, some of them pivoting in their existing businesses is so important. And you being a pivot queen, I think is an inspiration to other people who are in that same process, this, I don't want to take us too off track, but I want to ask your question on this, and then we're going to go back to personal branding. What do you say to people who talk about pivoting and they feel like they should just be okay with the business that they've built because it's working?
This kind of all comes back to identity and, what
Yeah.
you're saying of like, how do you separate yourself from the business? And I think that entrepreneurship is a privilege and
Yes.
it's a choice. And I would say if you're happy where you are, stay there. But if you're not, you're, leaving a choice on the table that you have to pivot or reinvent yourself. And other people don't have the luxury of that choice. They don't have the privilege of failure.
Right.
And so being aware of that and staying in one place is not a bad thing. Choosing
Yeah.
to stay when you deeply desire to pivot, but it's a bad time because you're, supporting your family or, your spouse's job is in a certain location. Like, I think as entrepreneurs, we can often like hype up like launching and changing and like, oh, these things sound flashy and exciting. And so I want to go on the other side of that and also say like, there's so much strength in waiting for your pivot, in waiting for that reinvention. But if you're just staying there because it's safe and it's unknown, I would think back to the version of you that didn't play it safe, right? When you got
Right.
started, the risks you took and how they paid off.
And this will all be part of your story.
Exactly.
Yes. Okay. So we talked about story. That's obviously so important. And I love that example of like, I'm seriously going to go find that brand and buy a bracelet so I can have a sea turtle. Turtle tracking.
You can see where your sea turtle is at any point. Yes. Like have your morning coffee and check on your sea turtle.
It's so cool. So what are the other personal branding secrets? I know you mentioned that there, or at least in your pre-interview, we'd mentioned 5. So let's go into number 2.
Yeah. The second one, I mean, we just talked about it a little bit, but document the process of your business. And that's kind of obvious. Again, we're starting with like the foundational ones here.
Yes.
But it's important to be aware, like you don't have the luxury in today's business world of building in private and then launching in public. That's not going to be successful. I see this a lot with more of the courses, digital products, coaches side is people will build a digital product and then launch it and no one buys, but your people didn't even know it was coming.
Yes, that is the worst idea.
It's a terrible idea.
Pre-launch.
So we'll say that, like, make sure that you're documenting the process of what you're creating. And if you're a physical product seller, that's easy because you can like show every single step of the way. And that comes a little bit more natural to you. The third one is what I have kind of always called like thank you next, but we could also go with like Mel Robbins, like the let them theory. And then once again, a lot of this comes back to that inner work and that identity work of like, when people question you or criticize you or leave you comments or like, I've gotten the weirdest emails, of like, I don't like the direction you're going, that kind of thing. Like you just have to let people do and say what they're going to do. And it can't cause you to rethink everything about yourself anytime that you're confronted.
So I feel like that is a confidence, almost like a confidence issue and standing in your own personal power because so we launched this AI tool, Desire AI, so excited about it. And the reason why I launched the tool is because I continued to watch jewelry business owners and other luxury product business owners put out really terrible marketing and also get stuck because they don't understand how to dig the information out. And so this tool basically is like a collaborator that's going to partner with you to create great marketing. It's founded in like my brain and my strategies and all my frameworks. But then also it has like the frameworks that like $100 million advertising campaign would have. And so instead of people getting stuck creating this like terrible marketing and everything, now they can just collaborate with this tool that's going to get them a great result by asking them a few questions and having all of their branding and everything on the back end. So I mentioned this because when I started talking about it, I was getting so many people commenting on random things about AI, which people are very uninformed. And one of them, and this is one that I really want to address because this is really relevant to what you're saying. I had this one comment with someone I really respect, go back and forth like 17 responses. And it's all about how much water AI uses. And
Yep.
the one thing that people don't understand is that you're scrolling on Instagram, that takes more water to cool down the systems that are, the data bank centers, I don't know what they're called, but
Mhm.
to cool down the systems than actually an hour on ChatGPT or any other AI tool. And so there's a lot of, like, as we call it, misinformation out there because people want to make something that's going to help you bad. And I mean, there's a lot of other things they're worried about it taking over jobs, but that's a great example. Like, I really had to stand strong in my power and understand the value of what I am bringing to the world. And I get it. Those people who are concerned about water should get off of Instagram, and they shouldn't probably listen to this podcast, and they shouldn't probably ever use a cell phone. Do you know what
Raise
I
your
mean?
own chickens. Okay.
Yeah. You can raise your own chickens and have your own beef and like do all of that on your own. And I say that respectfully, like everyone has a choice that they want to do, but also don't put that information in a silo, and also don't let it be the thing that derails you, because no one is ever going to completely agree and align with you. And a lot of people just like being mean and having controversy. Don't you feel that way? You've been online for a while. You
Yeah.
get this. They just like to tear people down.
It was a big struggle for me for a while in the personal branding process. To be fully transparent, when I started gaining a lot of audience and a lot of followers in my personal brand and in, helping people grow their business, it was growing very quickly. And along with that, I accidentally fell into this habit without realizing it, that I started seeking validation from those people.
Wow. Yeah.
And so I would like post something and then watch what would happen, right? And I would wait to see who liked it, who bought, who was mad at me, what did they say? And I didn't realize I was doing that until I reached the point of burnout. And I literally burnt that 6-figure business to the ground. I started all over, and I walked away from my community that I had built for over a year because of it. Because I started seeking validation, not from my mission, not from who I was, not from people I trusted, but from basically, as my friend Haley Luckadoo likes to say, like the people in the cheap seats, the people who got the free seats at the back. They didn't even pay to be there. And so it's important to realize, like, as you build a personal brand, as you become more public facing, more people, there's going to be great people, strangers on the internet who love what you do and support you. And they're like, this is the person I've been looking for, and I love what she does. And then there's going to be people who don't, and who are just showing up on the internet because rather than address what's going on in their own lives, they'd rather just be mean. And then part of it also is like, what I personally grew from in this process was letting go of some of those people in person who basically knew me before I started creating this personal brand, right? Who knew me personally, locally, and they couldn't accept the growth I was going through. And that was another big part of it. It was like trying to make sure I wasn't seeking validation from people I knew who weren't growing and who were very uncomfortable with my growth.
I heard this said once before, don't ever let someone's advice that they give you hurt you if it's not someone that you would take advice from. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Like, don't take advice from someone that you wouldn't seek advice for, or who isn't further along than you, maybe is a better way to put it.
Yeah. I've heard something along the lines of, right, don't take advice from anyone who doesn't have the life you want to live, that kind of thing.
Oh yeah, exactly. Yes, okay. Exactly.
Yeah. And I mean, I'm saying this to say, like, I made this mistake, and it probably set my business back a couple years because I desired deeply to make an impact in the world. And I also was at a point where I don't think I was fully grounded in this idea of like, I'm going to do what I'm going to do. I am so convicted in what I believe in and how I can help people that it doesn't matter what people say. And that is kind of a growing point that many people need to go through in the process of building their personal brand. So if you're struggling with that as well, from a very practical standpoint, you could block anybody you want to block, including your friends and family. I did for a very long time. So if that's what you need to do to make the content and put yourself public facing in your business, like, this is your permission slip to do that.
Yeah. So true. Like, couldn't give better advice. I have some people in my family that they are sniping at me because of like all my content that I post on Instagram. And all the platforms actually. And I just relate it back to that they don't understand how I'm using it to grow my business, and it is
Yeah.
part of being in business. And if
And
they were to do the same thing for their business, they'd probably be standing out a little bit more.
yeah, and recognizing too, I think just sometimes we get caught up in our own head and our own mind, and like just being aware that most likely if you're a business owner, all of the business owners you admire that you want to be like, they all have a personal brand. Every single one of them. Like
Mhm.
name one that doesn't, I'll wait.
So, what are some of the steps to get started with your personal brand?
So, identify that story, document your process of what you're building. Start to notice, this takes practice, but start to notice the things that are you believe differently than most people in your niche, even if
Mhm.
you're a physical product seller, right?
Something that's
Um,
different, your unique perspective.
yeah, and start sharing that. Why do you care about certain types of candle wicks, for example? Like, what matters about that? Why do you support certain causes? Why do you train for marathons? You can share a lot of your own personal content too, whether you have two separate social media hubs for yourself versus your business, or you put them together. It doesn't really matter. It's really just a personal choice. But starting to infuse more of that, and I'll add in, this is also more of a practical step or one of those personal brand secrets, but people like to work and buy from people who are winning. So that doesn't mean
Mm.
that you have to be the most successful or make the most money, but something that I see a lot of business owners making the mistake of, they are showing up in their business with the bare minimum of enthusiasm.
Yes. Thank you for sharing this.
And then they don't know why people aren't buying. But energetics in business today are so real. People can sense this. So I don't mean that you need to win awards or make sales every single day or, like have a 6-figure or 7-figure income. What I mean is, are you showing up like your business is a gift and that you are wildly enthusiastic and excited to do what you're doing? Because that's something you can do. And if you just do that alone, if you just show up and romanticize or obsess over the details of your products, or you're giving us day in the life of what it means to be this business owner, if you're doing that, you're already going to be above the bare minimum.
I love that you say that, because I think a lot of people, there was a trend going around like Instagram's fake and like all this stuff. Like, here's what's really going on behind the scenes.
Mm-hmm.
And while I'm all about authenticity, like I have zero problems with that. And I've shared a lot of very personal stuff and the transformation that I've been going through over the last year, which really has been a 5-year process because it's never just in the time. We're just in the transformation now. And that stuff is really hard. And I think people really appreciate hearing the journey. But I also, it's similar. Like we used to coach, or we do still coach people, used to, because we had this program called TYC. And then my original co founder, we used to teach people how to sell wholesale.
Mm.
And one of the things we always talked about was, the person scrolling on their phone in the back of the booth instead of standing up and like engaging with people.
Yeah.
And they would be like, people would ask them, how's the show going? And they would be like, oh, it's not that great. I'm like, you never tell someone who is a potential buyer that the show is not going great. You don't even say that to your show peers, because like, even if it's not going great, people read that energy. And it's like, people want to buy from excited people. So if you are showing up and talking about your product with excitement and like sharing the details, I love how you said that, or talking about why you're so excited about this new offer that you have as a coach or as a business owner, whatever type of business you have, people pick up on that excitement, and then they will be enrolled in whatever it is that
Mm-hmm.
you're selling.
People want to see you win. I know we just said there's some haters out there. We're going to let them do their thing. But the vast majority of people
Yes.
who are following you in your business, they want to see you win, and they want to work with someone who is also winning, who's winning
True.
at life, who made the perfect sourdough bread and posted it, who's like smiling and laughing when her kids are around her and it is chaos. Like when I say they want to see you win, I mean they want to see that you are excited and enthusiastic about what you do. And it's so funny that you brought up this trade show thing, because here we go. We're going to like pull a card out of my deck of business experience and cards here. And I've never shared this anywhere else on a podcast. But my mom, we built a whole business for her around quilting. She's a quilting coach. And sometimes she goes to trade shows and events. It's a big, nobody knows this about quilting, but it's actually a really huge industry.
Yeah, it's like a huge, like hardcore, isn't it?
Hardcore industry. And we own two multi-six-figure businesses based on quilting. And
cool.
She goes to these trade shows, and I watch my mom make bank because she talks to every person like it is the best day of her life. And imagine if you did that, so other people will say, the show's not going good, I've made no sales, but they're in the back on their phone, right? They're sitting back there not talking to anyone, and she's greeting every single person, inviting them to sign up for her giveaway, talking to them about what she has, talking about her memberships. And imagine if you showed up on your social media that way, and every single person who watched your stories, you sent them a DM or said hello or went and commented. Or, you're not big on social media, but you have a blog or a YouTube channel. Like, how could you infuse more enthusiasm in those areas of your business, or your Facebook group if you have like a private Facebook community? It doesn't have to be social media, but thinking about, enthusiasm makes a big difference in whether people notice you and you stand out, or they walked past you or scrolled past you and they couldn't even tell you your name if you offered them $100.
Exactly. Okay. So as you were talking about this, someone came to mind because she has there's two jewelry business owners or jewelry brands that I think do a great job. One of them, I don't know the woman's name, but I'm obsessed with her and I want her to be on the podcast. So maybe she'll get some recognition here. It's Feed Me Gems. She creates rhinestone jewelry, and she is all about the philosophy of dopamine dressing, and she taught and like feel good energy. And she posts content every single day about this. And it all relates back to her jewelry because of how she's dressing. And it's so great. So everyone go follow her and tell her that you found out about her on the Creatives Rule the World podcast. And then Melinda Maria. So I've known of Melinda Maria for many, many years because we used to do trade shows together back in the day in the 90s and early 2000s. Her ads, like anytime someone is like, how do you really create great ads for a physical product? I'm like, do what she's doing, because she literally just shows up and is like, hey guys, like check out my look today. And she's just showing people what she's wearing. She's like, these are available. I only have a few left. And she's like showing her, she makes like fake kind of like diamond tennis necklaces and stuff like that for like lower price point, but good quality. And so she's just showing people like how she's wearing it. And it's just an extension of who she is. And she's so bougie and like LA and the whole thing. And it totally fits into that lifestyle that people want. And so if you're thinking about who your person is on the other side, and even if you're saying right now, oh, well, I don't have that kind of personality, Tracy. Well, people who have your personality, who resonate with that kind of personality, are going to like who you are. So just show up as you.
That's exactly what I was going to say. As you were talking, I was like, this is such a good example. And a lot of people get discouraged because they're like, well, I don't dress like that, or I'm not funny, or something like this. And something that's really important to say is that this part of them, that's the brand. And it's actually a very small part of who they are, but it's how they built their personal brand. So I want you to know that person, maybe they dress really well, but she's actually really, really disorganized, right? So if you asked her to like make her personal brand around organization, she probably could not do it. And I don't know, maybe this person you're speaking of, she actually is very organized. But notice that it's a small piece of their personality that excites them, that they genuinely want to share with other people. And it's something that they can do again and again. So that's the other key to standing out online and building a strong personal brand, is making sure that what you choose to share is repeatable and recognizable. So if you're like, I want to talk about my travels, but you only go on one trip a year, that's probably going to be very hard for you to make content on.
Yeah.
Unless your content was like, here's all the trips that I can't take, you should go take them. There's always ways, but think about, what could be a really fun, repeatable thing that I could do, or a couple of those things. So Can I do am I interested in like day in the life, as a mom, homeschool mom who's also a jewelry maker, or you could do every day is like, come open my studio with me,
Mhm.
or something along those lines. And then really just kind of like exploring what would that look like to repeat it. So for me, I have a community. So very practically, I post a lot of pictures with other people. I can't
Mhm.
sell a community if it's just me in my emails and
Exactly.
content all the time. So I need to show the other things I'm doing, the networking I'm going to, the events I host. And that is a repeatable part of my personal brand.
I love that. So I'll give another example here. So my partner Jason and I are launching another podcast called I Love You. Why do you trigger me so much? Coming summer 2025. I'm so excited
Sounds
about it.
amazing. Already subscribing.
I know, isn't it so good? So part of that is that we just did a branded photo shoot. And like once a week, I try to post content about the two of us, about our
Mm,
relationship or why he's bugging me today. Well, I haven't really done that yet, but I will start like why he's bugging me today or how something that we went through actually got us to the other side of a conversation because that's exactly what the podcast is about. But it's also part of me because for people who've been following me and my story, one of the things about my story is that I met Jason when I was 48 years old, which is almost 6 years ago. I guess, yeah, it is 6 years, almost. Yeah, 6 years ago I met him. And we've been together almost 6 years, I should say. And that story of like meeting him later in life is like a huge part of like everything that I talk about on a personal brand and like showing women it's not too late and all these things has
mm.
nothing to do with me mentoring jewelry business owners or teaching people reinvention, except that I think the message is like anything that you dream of is possible it with the right intention, right?
That's
So
such a beautiful and clear example of everything we've been talking about.
exactly. Thank you. Thank you. So Taylor, is there anything else that you want to share about standing out with your personal brand?
We've covered a lot in 30
I
minutes,
know.
but I will say the last part, and I just touched on it a little bit with me talking about getting pictures with community, but the other thing about a strong personal brand is you do still need social proof.
Mhm.
And I'm not just talking about testimonials. So reviews and testimonials are great. However, most people use them in a very flat kind of way, right? They're like, Becky loved my product, 5 stars. Here's a screenshot of her review. And of course, we want to do some of that. Like, that is still helpful. It shows your quality and your credibility. But what I mean by you still need social proof for a strong personal brand is thinking about how are people evaluating you? How is your audience on the other side? Like, what are they looking for? So, for physical products, a lot of the social proof needs to come from other people wearing your products, showing them off, talking about them. If you look at every single makeup brand right now that is like rapidly growing, their entire feed is nothing but real people. It's all UGC content, it's all
Yep.
real people using the makeup. There's a reason these multi-million, billion-dollar companies are doing this. So put that into your own brand. And if you're selling digital products or services or you're a coach, do more Instagram lives with other people. Have
Mhm.
podcast episodes with your clients on. Go to events where you're going to meet people and get pictures with them. So just know that, you really want to think carefully about how a personal brand not only is authentic to you, but visually shows that as well. And social proof should always be a factor in that.
I love that. Okay. So that's a huge and important way to be thinking about creating credibility because when you think through the lens of like it's not just about people's outcomes, right? It's about the experience with your brand and also how you're showing up, who's featuring you. Like there's so many different ways to position this. And you're right, like all the makeup brands, they have these, I don't want to call them influencers because I think that a lot of people, well, yeah, it's like UGC content, like
Yeah,
someone who is using the makeup, showing how it works. You might not even know who the person is, but it's definitely not someone who is the owner of the brand.
right.
Yeah. So how,
And I
like,
don't even necessarily need to know who that is. I'm just going to
no,
go like watch the videos. Like I literally did that this week. I was like, oh, I bought makeup from Ilia. I'm going to go look for other redheads on their feed and see like what they're doing, which colors they're using before I go and buy.
That's really smart. And you could do this with you can pay people to create UGC content for you.
Hmm.
My friend Stephanie Dorwith, you know Stephanie?
Yeah.
Steph does this. So if you want to learn more about Steph's UGC package, you can send your jewelry to her and she'll create user generated content for you. She could probably also rally some of her friends to be part of this. And it's just a great way to get that done. But you can also just enroll and then enlist some of your friends to be like,
Mhm.
oh, because you have that outgoing friend who loves your jewelry, who just wants to talk about it, your outgoing friend who loves your product. Have them like record a quick video like Melinda Maria does and be like, oh my gosh, I love this. And then you post it on your feed just showing how other people are experiencing it. And it's in authenticity if someone actually like really does enjoy your jewelry. This is just how business is done. And it's also the experience of what is it like to engage with that physical product or that person's deliverable. And, you better bet, like I'm going to be having a lot of my graduates and students from the Art of Reinvention on this podcast to be talking about their experience over the coming weeks, because we're about to go into my second cohort. So that's just how it's done. And every time I've launched any program in Flourish and Thrive Academy, it's been the same way.
It's all like, people think of personal brand as a very selfish thing, but it's actually a very generous thing because you're still helping people by having a personal brand. So the person who genuinely needs to be in your cohort and they're on the edge and they're just not quite sure if it's for them, they want to, but maybe something's holding them back.
Mm-hmm.
Then they hear the story of someone who they can see themselves in that might not quite be you, but is in your community. That's what they need to take that leap and start taking action and getting results. And so I share that to say, like, your personal brand is not a selfish thing. It's actually just an extension of your brand and your marketing to help you have a greater impact in the world.
Exactly. So Taylor, you're having a virtual summit.
Yes.
Tell us a little bit more about that.
Yes. And Tracy, you're one of our incredible speakers, and I hope
So excited.
you will share a little bit more about what you're going to talk about. But our summit is July 23rd to 25th. So it's a 3-day online business summit. And it's going to be like the business conferences you dream about going to, except you don't have to get on a plane. You can do it from your yoga pants at home. And so for 3 days, we're going to dig into all areas of marketing, visibility, personal branding, content, in a way that helps you stop playing below your potential with your business. So if you're someone who has looked at other people online and thought, I wish I was getting podcast opportunities. I wish my collections were selling out. I wish I was getting the opportunity to speak on stage, or I got featured in a magazine. This is the summit that's going to put you down that path. And I'm very excited about it. We've got over 45 incredible speakers, and it's actually completely free for you to attend. So Tracy, do you want to also just share what you're talking on?
Yes. Well, I'm so excited because now I'm obsessed with AI. We're going to be talking about how I turned my knowledge and content and made a huge pivot to package that all up in an AI tool, and how other people can do the same if you're a coaching business, and also how to lean into a tool like this if you're someone who is needing support with your marketing. So I'm really, really excited about it. It's going to be a really fun conversation. I'm actually going to be we're recording this a little bit before this episode's going to be released. I'm going to be working on it right after this. So I'm excited to get the presentation together for you. So definitely check it out. It's called Stand Out and Sell. You will not regret it. It's going to be an amazing free summit, and I'm so excited to be a part of it. So thank you for having me.
And I'm so excited. It's going to be great. Definitely come and get your ticket, and we will see you July 23rd to 25th.
And we'll have a link to all of this in the show notes. So definitely check that out. You can just click wherever you're listening to this, whether it's on Apple, Spotify, YouTube. We'll have a link to the show notes so you can click right there and join. Thanks so much for being here today, Taylor.
Thank you so much for having me on the podcast, Tracy.
Thank you so much for watching the show today. This is Tracy Matthews signing off until next time. I hope that you enjoyed this episode. Please share your key takeaway in the comments below, and reach out to both Taylor and I on Instagram. And if you'd like more information about the Stand Out and Sell Out event that she's having, please check the show notes and we'll share exactly how you can join us for free. Ciao for now.